Donald Trump and Kamala Harris had their first presidential debate last night, and I have some thoughts about this one. Let's talk about how this might impact the election. Okay, so this debate went about 2 hours long, so there's a whole lot that we could get into with this, but I'm just going to give you my initial reactions with this video. Try to keep it somewhat brief. Not going to get into every single piece of policy that they got into, and I guess deranged insults that they also got into as well. But the first thing that I want to say is that I went into this with, the knowledge of seeing so many different Trump debates over the years and knowing exactly who he is on the debate stage, but also haven't seen Kamala Harris on a debate stage since, the winter of 2019. And I have to say, after her first like debate performance, it wasn't that great for her in the subsequent ones after that at the tail end of 2019. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. But I have to say, I came out of it genuinely surprised at how well Kamala Harris was able to handle Donald Trump and everything that Donald Trump is, especially on a debate stage. I think that she handled Donald Trump better than Joe Biden did and better than Hillary Clinton did. How much that matters, I'm going to, we're going to get into that later on this video. But the first thing that I will say is there was a couple moments that really stood out to me the most as far as what I thought truly was the theme of the night, which was Kamala Harris finding a way to get underneath Donald Trump's skin and kind of throw him off his game a little bit. Usually these are moments where he, comes and like shines a little bit. He's been from a really unorthodox place, has kind of like found a way to really own debates in the past. I thought he was kind of playing from the defensive a little bit tonight, and there were certain moments you could tell it just really bothered him. The first one being when Kamala threw a little dig at him, saying that, people at his rallies, are bored and they, are just tired and they get exhausted, and that, he says a bunch of really unhinged things at his rallies. In fact, let's actually go play the clip so you can hear exactly what it is that she said. Here's the video.
I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump,
on that first, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
So this moment came about like 20 minutes into the debate itself. And a little side note here. When I first covered Donald Trump, as far as like doing a video on him for Independent Thought, I watched myself about 6 Trump rallies before I actually ever got down to record anything about him. And she's not wrong. His rallies are in fact unhinged, and he talks about the most bizarre things you've ever heard of. And it is just a giant litany. If you've never watched one before, if you've never been to one before, it is just a giant litany of like random ass stories combined with everything I do is great. It's the greatest thing you've ever seen. Everyone who opposes me is the worst you've ever seen. They destroy everything around them. It's the same kind of formula every single time, but it nevertheless ceases to be a really unhinged thing. Um, but I will say this, that there is the occasional time where he makes a joke that is actually funny. He actually can be legitimately funny. But that's a whole different story. Tonight, he seemed legitimately bothered by that, though, because we know that Trump, nothing else, is just a raging narcissist. And so being told that people are leaving his rallies out of boredom and exhaustion obviously really got underneath his skin. He went on to talk about how he kind of like was able to transition this topic, back into immigration, where he feels like, it's definitely the best issue for himself and Republicans right now. And one of the really weird like MAGA conspiracies right now that's going on is that migrants from other countries are invading towns and stealing people's pets and eating them. if you haven't heard about this, just be thankful because you've avoided that part of the internet that is just odd. But nevertheless, here's actually a clip of Trump talking about this conspiracy theory, even after it was proven not to be true. Here's the clip.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
television. But the people on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
So yeah, Donald Trump, heard something on TV where there are people saying that they had their cats and their dogs went missing and obviously someone ate them. So because he heard it on TV, obviously it's true. That's just how the world works. And now he's telling it to tens of millions of people because that's just how this all works. It's all bizarre. Let's just be honest here. But another things that were worth noting, I think, in the debate, Donald Trump did not, in fact, say no to a national abortion ban, and he was asked multiple times. He kept saying that he wouldn't have to, but he never said no. He was even asked in the spin room afterwards if he would give an affirmative yes or no position on a national abortion ban, and he just walked away from the reporter. It feels like if you truly were, against a national abortion ban, you would just come out and say that, but he hasn't said it. So also, really, I guess a point of note, I guess this is also a moment where he was trying to just find a bunch of buzzwords to throw together and just kind of spit something out, where he said that Kamala Harris wants to give transgender operations on illegal aliens in prison. I just feel like that's where you're just reaching for every conservative buzz word you can possibly put together into one sentence to cause massive outrage for your base. But yeah, that moment I literally just didn't even know what to say there. But I think also they had a brief moment where they were talking about healthcare. The moderators brought up the fact that Kamala Harris has been flip-flopping on her positions, which we're going to get into here in a minute. But when they asked Donald Trump about his positions on healthcare, he said that, he still doesn't really have a plan. I think his direct quote was, "I have concepts of a plan," to which I find to be kind of, humiliating that in that moment he couldn't at least, fake saying that he had some plan. He outright said he had no plan. But the last thing that I want to note here that I thought were, either positives for Kamala or, negatives for Trump, because I'm going to get into the flip side of that here after this. Kamala took a moment here that I thought was actually a really, smart thing to do, because Trump is always talking about this, this almost this cloak of invincibility, essentially talking about how great everything he does is and how great that he is, and how everything was perfect when he was in charge. She took a moment to go after him and talk about all the different people who used to work for him and what they feel and how they feel about him now and what they've said about him. And I just thought it was actually a brilliant thing to do, as far as I'm concerned, just from a strategy standpoint. But instead of playing the clip of what she said, I'm gonna actually play a longer clip. This is actually a clip from Fox News from last year, where Brett Baer, anchor for Fox News, was interviewing Trump, and he was specifically talking about all of the people that Trump has had work for him in the past who no longer, are a fan of his. And I just think it's one of the best 1 minute segments in all of television history. So we're gonna play that clip for you really quick.
Okay, in 2016 you said that. I'm going to surround myself with only the best and most serious people.
Well, I did do that.
This
and we had tremendous look. We had the best economy we've ever had. The world has ever seen.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again. calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called and Barr a gutless pig. Your second defense secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock, and your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Canadian, milquetoast, and multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife. So, why did you hire all of them?
I do want to give Trump credit for one thing, though. Again, just kind of like really tail end here. That video is hilarious. But let me give Trump credit for one thing. He did say something that I actually agreed with that I thought was very true. Was that, Kamala said multiple times that, if Congress passes a bill to restore Roe, that she will sign it into law. She said that, tonight on the debate stage. She said it at rallies. She said it in her one interview with Dana Bash. But I don't think that that's ever going to be the case. Not how Congress is currently constructed. Just for those who are not aware, if the Democrats retake the House and they pass a bill through the House that restores Roe, great. It goes to the Senate then. And then in the Senate, it would need to get 60 votes in order to avoid a filibuster, to which I got to tell you, whether the Democrats have 51, 52, 53 seats, and that's probably the highest you'd ever see as far as Democrats are concerned, you would still, in that best scenario, have to get 7 Republican senators to also vote for this. And that's just not happening. It's just not happening. And so I cannot envision a scenario where Roe actually gets reestablished that does not include getting rid of the filibuster. It just doesn't make any sense. And so when Trump called her out saying that like she was never going to be able to sign that into law, he's actually right. But with that being said, there might be a little bit of hope on that front. So I'm going to point this out really quick. This is from Axios. We're going to put this up on the screen here. It's a scoop. So nothing official, just a scoop. Bernie Sanders is backing Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is the Senate Majority Leader for the Democrats on dropping filibuster for abortion rights. Kind of talks about how they want to create a specific carve out that would allow them to bypass the filibuster in order to get Roe back to being codified. Axios doesn't really go into that many details in here about what exactly that would look like. But the fact that it's being considered does give me a little bit of hope that maybe they are actually taking this seriously, to which, a lot of things in DC politics is just lip service to get people to get jazzed up for voting, but they don't actually plan on ever delivering. And we've seen that plenty of times through this particular Biden administration. But this does make me think that maybe there is a plan in place. Maybe. Time will tell. So let's talk about some negatives here. Kamala Harris embracing fracking. What are we doing? Do you know how many? I've seen so many people online just tonight who were so disappointed in the climate change. The lack of climate change discussion that was had. And then Kamala Harris essentially just pivoting to the right on so many issues, but on fracking in particular. Like, why does she feel the need to essentially push the Democratic Party further right on climate change policy when it's already right enough? It needs to be pushed in a more pro climate change direction, and yet she's trying to drag the party back the opposite direction. I think that that's a mistake, as well as I think it's a mistake that she's trying to drag the party right on several other issues like immigration. But also, she was for Medicare for all, which one of the moderators pointed out back in 2019. Now she has firmly stated that she wants nothing to do with universal health care, and that she wants to just build on Obamacare. She wants to build on the Affordable Care Act. She also wants to essentially keep private insurance just where it is, to which I find that to be egregious. Earlier, when she was talking about the folks who were Republicans who were coming out against Donald Trump, she was also touting her Republican endorsements, specifically again the endorsement of Dick Cheney. And I made a whole video about how absolutely disgusting that is, but I just cannot get over it. I cannot get over it. How absolutely terrible of an idea it is to actively just embrace the endorsement of Vice President Dick Cheney. He just may be the most evil politician who is still alive, like American politician. He just might be. I cannot get over how absolutely stupid that is. I really can't. I cannot get over it. But I also thought that her answer on Israel and Palestine, I thought it sucked. You know, for me, it feels as though Kamala is not going to do anything differently than Joe Biden. And for those of us who really care about this issue, it feels very apparent to me that the Biden administration is just essentially doing whatever it is that Israel is asking of them. And it sounds to me, from everything that Kamala has said so far, her administration would look exactly the same. Exactly the same. And I have to tell you, I just feel like that's one of the things that might keep her from winning this election, truthfully. I really do. Because it's not that people who really care about this issue would vote for Trump in some kind of, protest vote, but they might not vote at all. Or they'll vote for Jill Stein. And if enough of that happens across enough of these swing states, forget about it. Because Donald Trump's people are showing up. They're not sitting this election out. So I just think that she is making a huge miscalculation by continuing to embrace the Biden administration stances on Israel and Gaza. Um, but I want to say that my overall takeaway from this debate is the fact that I think that Kamala Harris, while she has plenty of policy positions that I don't agree with, I think they're to the right of where we need to be. I think her policies on Israel and Gaza are absolutely atrocious. But if I'm taking my emotion out of it and just thinking about it from a strategic standpoint or just tallying up wins and losses, I think that I would say that she got underneath his skin. I think that she absolutely found a way to make herself look more presidential than him. I think that she was able to find a way to come out of this looking better than he was. And I think that she kind of baited him quite a few times and he just absolutely took it. In fact, that was pretty much the theme of, a lot of people's takeaways from this. I was seeing the reactions on Twitter/X. I was seeing reactions on Instagram. I saw reactions on cable. I actually watched cable to get some reactions here. Here's a clip of basically just like what everyone was saying as far as how they thought that this debate went between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Here's the clip.
Here she was tonight. She was composed. She was prepared. She kept her cool. She saw advantages. She took them. She baited him successfully, which is the story of the debate, in my view. So she came out ahead in this, in my opinion, no doubt. Now, whether it'll move the needle in the race, very few things seem to, but that remains to be seen.
So, do presidential debates actually affect elections? I mean, the last one kind of did, didn't it? So, I mean, for those who didn't think that they do, that last one really throws that whole thing out the window, as far as I'm concerned. But what I'll say is this: you have a strong contingency in this country who they know right now that they are definitely voting for whoever the person is who has a D next to their name, and then a same strong contingency who will vote for whoever it is who has the R next to their name. And I feel as though when it comes to this election in particular, that number of people is actually probably higher than it's ever been. You know, Donald Trump is an incredibly polarizing figure in our politics. There are people who are willing to, crawl over broken glass to vote for him. And there are people who are willing to crawl over broken glass to vote against him. And so, how many people are actually left after that? And I feel like that number is smaller and smaller and smaller. Those who are truly swing voters. And then, more importantly, I feel like on the left, people who are swinging between, not like Trump or Harris, but between Harris and Jill Stein and the couch. So these are the margins that I'm thinking about right now. How many people on the margins are still weighing their options as far as what they're going to do when voting starts? I mean, for some states now in September, but for most of us in October, with early voting for most states next month. I think that nights like tonight can impact the race on a little bit. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about states that are going to come down to 1 or 2 percentage points, the 7 swing states who are going to be razor thin, all 7 of these states came within 3 points last time, all 7 of them. So I think, again, when we're talking about these really thin margins, I think everything has a little bit of a matter to it. Everything can have, a little bit of a shaving on the outcome. So, I think time will tell. We'll see some more polling, in the days to come since this debate was over. We're going to probably see another debate. It sounds like Kamala Harris has already asked for a second debate. So I think we did just kind of keep our eyes on all the different data that's coming out and see which way it's leaning. But as of right now, it's hard to say who's actually has an advantage in this race. I just think that we're going to be kind of just biting our nails, trying to parse through little bits of information between now and election day, 8 weeks from now. Thank you for watching this video of Independent Thought. If you liked the conversation, please go ahead and give the video itself a like, and be sure to subscribe for future episodes on the channel.